This video was made possible by viewers like you who decided on backing me on Patreon. I thank you so much for your continued support.
Hey, whoa, whoa! Don't shoot at us, nigga. You no problem.
If you don't pull us out, these people are all dead.
Let's leave a Charlie Vanguard, but that zone is too hot for extraction.
Playing through The Division has been one of the most frustrating experiences playing a game in quite some time. The first couple of hours playing this game were polarizing to say the least. Throughout my time playing The Division, I found myself in the middle of having fun and frustration at the same time. Even after putting 30 hours into the game and beating it, I'm still stuck at the middle of the road for this game. I neither like the game per se, nor do I hate it. It's just right there in the middle, closer to disinterest and being really just a filler game. A quick disclaimer before we get into this, I want to say that this is an in-depth critique of The Division, and such may lead to me focusing in on details that some may find unimportant in their own personal opinion. That is perfectly fine, but please try to understand that I'm trying to lay out all these thoughts that I've had for the game ever since the beta to fully critique as much as the product as I can, even to the small details that some may find petty. I'm laying out a critique of the game rather than just a standard review that you'd come to expect from IGN or GameSpot. This is a deep dive of not only The Division as a whole, but the small cogs and gears that allow it to function and be brought to life. With that out of the way, let's get to it. In order for me to keep my thoughts organized throughout this entire video, I've decided to split up this critique into different parts. These parts will allow me to focus on the main points I wish to make about The Division, while lending strength to my overall opinion on this game. Think of them as pillars by which I hold up my overall placement of The Division in my own gaming experience. I wish to break down this video into these 5 parts: expectations and pre-bias, thematic dissonance, narrative awareness, gameplay, and constructive criticism. Each of these will have their own purpose and have created my thoughts on many areas of this game that I feel need to be addressed. So let's start with the elephant in the room: expectations and bias. These two things I feel are something that I need to explain off the start to better understand my mindset fully going into The Division and any precognitive biases I may have before and while playing throughout the game. The purpose of this is to remove any sort of assumption making or preconceived notions that this critique is based off of a false foundation. My expectations going into The Division go a little bit like this. Back in 2013, the game was originally announced. I was impressed like most by the graphical fidelity and presentation of the game, as well as the smooth third-person gameplay. I love the setting and the hints of PvP set up by the tease of the human-player interaction at the end of its trailer. This trailer gave me the impression Ubisoft was going for a tactical, survival-styled game, perhaps with the hints of RPG elements. My mind raced with the idea that Massive was aiming to create an MMO PvP world set in New York, similar to the concept of DayZ, but instead of zombies, we had to fight off other human beings for gear to survive. I would say that most would say that this is a fair assessment based off of the first trailer alone, and I'm sure some of you had this same idea as well. Fast forward 1 year later, the news of the Dark Zone and additional gameplay along with the inevitable delay, and my hype and anticipation for this game started to dwindle. Watching the Division's dev videos began to make me skeptical rather than excited to play their game. My doubts began to grow like a virus when more footage showed and the game was becoming a more focused RPG rather than the tactical shooter I had imagined would come with a Tom Clancy game. So when 2016 came around and the game was right around the corner, my expectations for The Division had hit rock bottom. I didn't even know the day that the game was even coming out, nor did I even care as a sign of apathy towards the game. If it hadn't been for me winning a bet with Black last year, I don't even know if I would have picked this game up in the first place.
You're telling me you're gonna get over 15K and before the end of this year?
I think I could get to 50K by the end of this year, bro.
Okay, so you saying you're gonna get 50K?
I ain't gonna bet you that because I already got a bet with most.
So you gonna bet that you can get at least over
more than you?
15,000 subscribers?
I bet I can get more subscribers than you. So you have 15,000.
I'm saying I'm gonna have 15K subscribers. I'm estimating I will hit 15K. So you're saying you're getting over 15K.
Okay, yes.
So you're willing to bet if you beat me and you get over 15,000, so that means you have to get at least 15,000 in one or more, I will buy you any game from 2016. But if I still retain a higher sub count than you before the end of this year, you have to give me one game I want in 2016.
Alright, bet.
Yeah, bet.
Rachel, shake on that shit.
You got a deal.
The other elephant in the room I'm sure many of you are waiting for me to bring up is my bias. Let's not beat around the bush. If you've been on my channel for the past year, you know that I'm a huge proponent against Destiny. Last year was almost a crusade for me to convince people that Destiny was a cancer that people needed to stop playing. Now with The Division trotting around similarities to Destiny, since they both live in the realm of RPG FPS, it's fair that some of you may believe that my hatred for Destiny may cloud my judgment to The Division simply due to being guilty by association. Now I would be absolutely lying to you if I said that my displeasure for Destiny did not give me a negative mindset going into The Division for the first time. The first hour of me playing was filled with prejudgment of how the game played just like a third-person Destiny, and due to the controversy of Brooklyn would go down the same road as Destiny, fulfilling the prophecy that I had predetermined back in my Destiny 2.0 Death of an Industry video. Some of these claims are sound, but I don't want to get too deep into comparisons of Destiny and The Division until later into this video, or perhaps a separate video of its own. What I'm trying to say is that I've recognized the original bias I had going into The Division, and after getting into The Division deeper with JG and TDH, I've been able to get over that bias and deliver a more concise critique. I know some of you may not buy this if I'm overly negative on this game, or some of you may be just like me with the same bias going into watching this video. All I can say is that I've recognized the existence of this bias, and I've taken active steps to avoid it clouding my overall opinion on the mechanics behind the game. Again, something that I spoke about even in my Death of an Industry video on Destiny was that my hatred was not directed towards the gameplay of Destiny, but more of the manipulation of its design to entice a very manipulative business model that did not put the consumer first. I feel like I can move on to the first, and in my opinion, the most fundamental thought on The Division: thematic dissonance.
Yo, wait! Default black guy! Default black guy! Default black guy! All black people look alike! Oh!
Dissonance is the lack of agreement. It's the inconsistency between the beliefs one holds or between one's actions and one's beliefs. Thus, one of the biggest things I wish to discuss regarding The Division is in fact thematic dissonance. In our reality, we have a certain set of beliefs that we deem true after being tested for their authenticity. Like for example, shooting someone in the head with an AK-47 should cause instant death. The biggest obstacle with The Division is in fact the dissonance of its setting. Set in a modern day crisis scenario in New York, The Division totes a very realistic and grounded visual experience. The devs were so dedicated to this idea that they created a one-to-one scale of Manhattan down to recreating the very streets you can walk in real life. So with this idea of making the world of The Division as realistic and grounded as possible from a world-building concept, what happened to the gameplay? In video games, we all have different levels of suspense of disbelief. They allow us to look past illogical scenarios and game mechanics due to the idea that we're playing a game. This suspension of disbelief has been getting less and less as of late due to more and more games aiming to become photorealistic and push to becoming more authentic as similar mechanics in real life. What I'm leading to is The Division is a contradiction within itself. It is a game that aims to give the player this realistic world with this realistic doomsday scenario with these realistic characters and these realistic missions that you need to complete. All of these areas fulfill the vision I feel The Division excels in: authenticity. But when you get to the actual gameplay, not only is The Division not bound in reality, it disregards it completely. I know for a fact that if I headshot you with a sniper rifle, there is no second chances or you shrugging off the bullet. These ideas I know to be true as facts are oblivious in The Division. Thugs wearing hoodies shrug off bullet fire as if they're wearing full body armor. Snipers wearing baseball hats can eat sniper fire only to return fire not only with deadly accuracy, but with more stopping power than your own sniper rifle. And armorless enemies will rush you with no care in the world for their own life's preservation. These mechanics and intelligence of the AI are the polar opposite of realistic. While the mechanics themselves might dictate that a thug has, for whatever reason, enough shielding to protect them from a clip from an AK-47, he visually does not represent that at all. This disconnect is not only a turnoff for myself while playing the game, but it cost me my life many times the first couple of hours playing this game. A lot of times, it was due to me underestimating an enemy because I was conditioned to believe he would drop with ease, only to be fooled when he drops me in a matter of seconds. What I'm trying to say is The Division does not do things on an even ground. While the damage being done to you feels realistic, where you can die really fast, it isn't reciprocated with the AI. The AI feel like bullet sponges that just absorb bullets and spit them right back at you with even more fire. Because of this, what you'll find is Ubisoft has made the AI not smart, but just overly aggressive. Due to the huge amounts of health and armor that they can wear, you'll notice a lot of times that the AI aren't in all actuality flanking you, but they're just bum rushing you because they know that the odds are in their favor down to simple statistics. Because of this, The Division setting is a mismatch for its gameplay, which can cause a disconnect between the player and the immersion created by the game. Now, I'm sure this is when many people try to say that this was the devs' choice to go with this RPG system and this is what they wanted. And I agree, if this was the choice of the devs, then I would say that they were successful for the most part at creating a solid RPG system. However, if this is true, I would say that the choice of creating an RPG system to go on top of the Division seems also hypocritical of the devs' vision to create a realistic world. This is where I now hint that perhaps their development was influenced by Destiny and take this W, but that would be speculation, and while it may not sound far-fetched, let's just give Massive the benefit of the doubt and say it wasn't. However, even with this dissonance of two different aspects of their game's visual experience and its interaction experience, I feel that ultimately we find that there's two main types of way we as gamers judge a game. See, we can judge a game based off of the developer's vision, which is what the developer set out to accomplish with the game. This idea can be taken by their trailers and even their developer log videos to gather what goal they wish to reach with the Division. The other side is, well, the gamer's experience. While the developer's vision is important to take into account, it's also just as important to take into account about how their vision interacts with the player experience of the game. Basically put, how good is their game to the end user based off of their own personal scale. As you'll find, most games that are critically praised seem to have a balance of both having the developer's vision align with the player's experience, with the game being positive. A vision is important to keep the game focused and on track of reaching its desired goal, which is to bring the gamer enjoyment. However, when mistakes are made in the design or the vision isn't fully met, a lot of times it can lead to a bipolar effect. This effect is exactly how I feel about the Division, as I feel for me, both are completely opposite. I'm sure the Division accomplished most of what it set out to be and has many areas where it's executed well. However, the player experience that I had with this game, regardless of the vision, is one of the most frustrating and confusing games I have played in a while.
This isn't gonna cut it.
We're doing the best we can, Dr. Candle. Any suggestions you might have, I'm happy to listen.
I know. Beggars, choosers, all that crap. What matters is beating this thing, but I can't do that without knowing more about it.
Here's a good place to start.
I feel that at this point, it's important for me to state that I'll be discussing the narrative of the Division in this part, and spoilers will be shown and told. So if you don't want the narrative spoiled for yourself, I'll just say that you might want to skip this section of the video. But the reason why I'm spoiling it is because it's pretty shit tier. Here's the basic overview of the Division's narrative. You are part of the Division, an organization developed during a training program that simulates possible bioterrorist attacks in the US and how to combat the resulting aftermath. After the events of Black Friday, the President of the United States signs Directive 51, allowing the Division to become active. When this happens, the first wave of agents is sent into New York as early responders to get the situation under control. Things, however, don't go according to plan, as the first wave mysteriously disappears and has gone radio silent. With the city still under siege, you are activated to be part of the second wave of the Division agents, tasked with finding out what happened to the first wave and complete the mission that they failed to accomplish. Entering the world of the Division, you spend about an hour in a glorified tutorial section located in Brooklyn. Basically, this section teaches you the basics of gameplay and mission structure. After successfully completing the tutorial, you're ready to be sent into New York, but due to your ride being mysteriously blown up with no context whatsoever, you wake up in another helicopter with another Division agent giving you aid. She basically tells you are the only asset she has left, and she has no choice but to trust that you can get the job done. Once you arrive in Manhattan, you really get to see how horrible the situation is. Now, this is where I would tell you guys about the twists and turns that the plot has and the different characters you run into, but let me sum up the entirety of the story in a nutshell. From this point on, you will spend your time towards two goals. One is taking back the city and cleaning the streets of the different factions that currently have set up their own territories throughout Manhattan, and the other one is finding the man behind the green poison virus in order to find a way of creating a cure and purging the virus. While the premise is interesting and full of potential, it is wasted by a story completely void of any character development, uninspiring repetitive mission structure, a lack of your own character having a voice, and generic throwaway characters that you barely get to interact with. The narrative of the Division is padded, giving players just enough to keep them moving, but not enough to keep them invested in the world. Moments of maturity and emotional investment through the usage of collectibles littered around the city are wasted opportunities, as the main story disregards these powerful stories for just generic bullet sponges. The Division fails on the most fundamental areas of storytelling, from no character development whatsoever to the lack of engaging side characters who engage the player and challenge their purpose. None of this is in the Division, which is a disgrace, as even Destiny, a game with no story whatsoever, still had these basic story devices. The main villains, if you will, of the story have been devoid of interaction with the player besides putting a bullet in their head. From the leaders of the Riders, the Cleaners, and Last Man's Battalion, to even the Ghost Division rogue agent, each of these characters are only known to the player through video feeds and audio recordings. Who they are as characters have been downgraded to collectibles that the player must go out of their way to find and collect. So as you're picking up these collectibles and you see and hear these villains explain their reasons for the things that they're doing, you would think that when you finally meet them, there would be some sort of epic cinematic moment of conversation or perhaps even enlightenment, right? No, instead they decide on throwing these villains in with the rest of the AI mobs as they throw insults your way. All the actions and thoughts that they showed through the echoes and audio and video recordings have been chalked up to yelling and screaming as they attack you like a rabid animal. And the worst part is, you really feel nothing towards them. No hate, no resentment, no connection at all with any of these boss fights, and it gives the player no sense of awe or purpose besides being told on a radio to go inside of a building and kill everyone inside. Now who sounds like the bad guy? The only character with the biggest amount of potential is Aaron Keener, the rogue division agent who's part of Wave 1. I spent a lot of time watching his echoes specifically and was truly interested in meeting him. However, Aaron is no more than a plot trigger manipulated by Ubisoft to be used as a DLC standing point, possibly the most interesting person in the game, and you never actually get to meet him in the entire game. The Division's narrative is just as bad, if not worse than Destiny's in certain areas through its placement of cutscenes, generic and boring characters, and most insulting of all, the complete lack of voice acting of your own character. I feel that these cutscenes truly show the awkwardness and laziness of the Division story as a character tries to engage with you on critical topics as you stand there looking like an idiot, bobbing your head and walking away from the conversation without any sort of response at all.
You did real good hooking stuff up. Almost gives a guy like me hope again.
Well, that's a goddamn miracle.
Said almost, Agent Lau. So what you found while you were out there is keeping me up at night?
Oh my god. Oh. Achievement unlocked. Look at all those purple nigga! Oh, it's Christmas! It's Christmas!
I sound like some little kid right now.
I prayed for this. The earth just cried purples for a nigga.
Okay, so now this is the section where I actually have some good things to say about the Division. I know right now you're probably worried and thinking that I have absolutely nothing positive to say, but there are actually some good things about this game, believe it or not, and I feel the gameplay is really just the best part of the Division as a whole. First, let me kill the obvious thing. A lot of people have compared this game to Destiny. Is it like Destiny? Yes and no. It does in fact follow the core principle design, which is a shooter RPG. It follows the format that you can see in MMORPGs of looting, like in World of Warcraft and Defiance, and like I said in Destiny. The grinding is more, I wouldn't even say it's enjoyable, but it's more tolerable than in Destiny. In Destiny Year 1, there were a bunch of progression bars and conditions that you had to complete in order for you to get the top gear. Exotics were extremely hard to get your hands on, and they required a bunch of different materials and requiring you to do raid after raid after raid and crucible match after crucible match, and a lot of times all this hard work would often end with you getting no reward or a low-end reward to the amount of work that you put in. The Division does this better in the idea that if you put a lot of work into this game, you will eventually be rewarded. Now, I'm not saying that if you go and you do a mission on hard, you're guaranteed to have one of the best weapons in the game. There is still a sort of RNG system at play here, but I will say that it's way more fair compared to Destiny's. The random loot drop system does give you higher percentages of chances of getting that good loot if you actually put work in, which was one of my biggest issues with Destiny. But now, like I said in the previous sections, the idea of this RPG system I think does in fact hurt the Division more than it helps it. I really feel that the beginning half of this game is when the game performs the worst. The idea of bullet sponges and you being weak and you not having access to a bunch of variety when it comes to weapons and armor and so forth can really make the game boring and frustrating. Like I said, the beginning hours of me playing the Division were full of frustration, the extreme amount of bullet sponging that happens early on with a thug riot faction. However, when you get later into the game and you start going against different AI, being the Last Man Battalion and the Cleaners for the most part, you will notice that the game actually does have some challenge to it and will require teamwork if you are running co-op. I wouldn't say that it's at the point where it's like a tactical shooter like Rainbow Six Siege types of teamwork, but it has just a surface level amount of teamwork, like focusing targets at the same time, laying ammo or health, or switching up your skills and talents based off of different types of builds. Another positive I have is the base of operations. Through upgrading the different pillars of your base of operations, security, tech, and medical, you'll notice that these upgrades also dynamically change the base of operations. More people will start to come into your base of operations. It really becomes this place that you can call home as new people and new equipment starts to fill in those gaps. It starts to feel as if you're rebuilding society. The biggest thing I think the Division does, it truly embodies the phrase that you don't appreciate the little things until they're gone. And if you just in the base of operations, I highly recommend that instead of running in and out of it, that you actually take your time and you listen to the atmosphere. The base of operations has fantastic atmosphere. What you find in the base of operations is a very strong attention to detail, as well as the safe houses that are littered around the city. Moving on to mission structure, unfortunately, The Division has the same issue that Destiny has, which is repetitive mission structure. It follows the exact same format every single time. The side quests have just been a copy-paste design that Ubisoft has been doing for the past 6 years when it comes to all their open world titles. Same types of side quests that you've done in Far Cry and Assassin's Creed can be found in The Division as well. Saving hostages, assassination missions, exploration puzzle missions, and finding collectibles. When it comes to the main mission, not only is there a lack of cinematic detail, but the mission structure is exactly the same. Once you start a mission, you basically have to go from point A to point B and shoot anybody that tries to stop you. Ultimately, you're just going to be killing a bunch of mobs, and then you're going to run into a mini boss. You'll kill the mini boss, and then you'll kill more mobs. And once you get to the end of the missions level, there'll be one big final boss for you to kill, along with a bunch of other mobs that the game pushes towards you. And like I said, the AI are not really that intelligent, and most of the time what you'll find is they will just immediately bum rush you with every type of AI that's alive.
Yeah, you don't know which way to look, do you, nigga? Oh, it's raining bullets.
Opposite of the PvE mode, there is PvP through the Dark Zone, and there have been some complaints that some people wish that there was some team deathmatch variant where, you know, you could play a regular mode of team deathmatch. And personally, I wish it was here too, because I like the Dark Zone, but the Dark Zone definitely has issues that it needs to improve on. The Dark Zone is ultimately where you're going to be doing a lot of your in-game content grinding. If you want to get the best weapons, you have to go to the Dark Zone. While you can just do PvE missions on a higher difficulty, ultimately, if you really want to get the best loot, you're going to have to go into PvP, and you're going to have to kill even more mobs or human players. The Dark Zone compared to the beta is definitely way better, as they have improved the amount of AI who wander around, and it's definitely a more deadly and intense environment. The game constantly has this amazing amount of attention that you have, especially if you're running in the Dark Zone solo, where you not only have to worry about running into strong enemy AI, but also a human player who can shoot you any second. However, on the opposite side, I will say in my entire 30 hours of playing this game, I never once ran into a rogue agent. There was one moment where I went rogue, but after that, I really didn't find anybody really trying to go rogue. But I do wish that perhaps Ubisoft makes it a little bit more of an incentive to go rogue in certain moments, maybe by perhaps increasing the amount of XP that they can get in the Dark Zone, or maybe increasing the likelihood that they can get better loot while still in rogue status. Dark Zone may in fact be the best aspect of the Division, but like I said, it still has some issue it needs to tweak, especially when it comes to intent to go rogue. There are in fact some issues that they have to kink out when it comes to using your certain skills and accidentally hurting another player when you had no intent to do so, and can lead to a lot of misunderstandings and mishaps where I lost a lot of good loot due to being overwhelmed due to a bunch of Paragon agents. But overall, I will say that I did find the gameplay somewhat enjoyable. Like I said, there are those moments early on where it's frustrating, but later on in the game, once you get towards the late game, that's when the game I feel can truly shine and show its own colors.
Alright, I'm gonna search the footage for those agents.
We don't go on dates.
What the fuck?
Oh, the game just kicked me out. Wow. GG.
We were literally done with the mission, bro. That's bullshit.
And on this final part, I just want to give some constructive criticism towards the game. Again, things that I would have done. Again, the biggest point that I've stated throughout this entire video is the idea of thematic dissonance, the idea that the game setting does not match its gameplay, and it becomes a disconnect when it comes to the player's immersion. I made a video a little while back before this game came out talking about the Division's lost potential that I saw, and really how I felt that the game would have been better in every way, shape, or form if it had gone more of a survival tactical shooter route rather than the RPG route that it currently went. And I don't want to just repeat myself, so I'll just leave a link to that video if you want to learn a little bit of the details of the different design choices I would have made with the Division when it comes to making it this tactical survival game. If you're still skeptical about that idea, I want you to take a step back and think for a second. I want you to think about every other type of shooter RPG and tell me how many of them are in a realistic setting. The answer is, to my knowledge, none of them. Why? You'll find that every single one of them are set in a futuristic sci-fi setting, and because that setting, it allows them to make things like shields and stuff, and it makes absolute sense to the player's immersion. However, when you set it in a realistic world, you have to bind the game to a realistic rule set, which the Division, like I said, doesn't give a fuck about. The other big thing that I hinted at was I just wish it was a survival game more. I wish that these consumables that you picked up, the canned food, the water, was actually used more instead of just being used as ways of regenerating your special ability or your health, that they would have been used as actually a meter of being hungry, being thirsty, you know, basic survival gear like staying warm and so forth. I just wish overall that this game had been, instead of just wasting their time with all this repetitive filler fodder, that they just removed it all and made the whole map a dark zone and gave it this DayZ vibe of trying to survive in Manhattan and having to scavenge these supplies in order to survive. And instead had made a push for emergent gameplay, which would allow for users to have these own amazing stories through the interactions they'd have with the game and different players on the map through dynamic gameplay, instead of trying to create these moments through these repetitive, boring missions. Now, like I said, my crusade against Destiny and the reason why I despise that game was due to its business model and manipulation of game design in order to take more money out of consumers' wallets. Now, The Division has the same sort of totes as Destiny and could easily pull off the same type of scam that Destiny did to its year one players. There has been recent news that a player has in fact glitched out of the map, and they were able to see that there are sections of the map that are unfinished. Now, I will state about this because I know some people will say, that's cut content, that's what Destiny did. Now remember, Destiny also got exposed because they found that parts of the Wolf DLC and the Dark Below were actually on the disc. Like, you could actually see them on the map and you could actually go into those areas. The difference I found between that and The Division is Destiny's were actually finished and polished for the most part. It was just missing the AI. This one, from what I see, there are areas where it seems polished, but a lot of it just seems unfinished and really doesn't look like a playable state at all. There's AI missing, there's textures missing, you can fall through the ground. So this makes me believe that they were starting to build this and they weren't able to get it done, and so they had to wait until later in order to put it in. Really, it just came down to a timing thing. The developers didn't get enough time to put this stuff in the game, but at least now they're adding it in as free. So because of this, I don't believe that The Division's glitched areas are in fact cut content. I just think it's unfinished areas that they have to add. But that does not dismiss that, one, this is Ubisoft we're talking about, who has pulled off a lot of BS in the past 2 years. So it would not surprise me if, however, in the near future we do find cut content, or we do find that the DLC was in fact on the disc through some way or some means. If that does happen, however, you can bet I'm gonna ether this game. But for right now, really all we have is speculation and assumptions, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse until I find definitive evidence that they are in fact trying to pull something on consumers. When it does happen, I promise you, I will be one of the first to let you know on Twitter and also on my YouTube channel. But for now, I haven't found anything that absolutely screws over the consumer. But I will state one of the biggest fuckeries I do not like, which Destiny did this, and The Division also does it. I don't know why they do this, is they do not give you a satisfying conclusion. Like I stated in the previous part talking about narrative, the whole point of them adding that rogue Division agent does nothing for the story but leaves an open ending, just like in Destiny about how, oh, the darkness is still out here. They basically make the rogue agent a story plot device in order to introduce more DLC content. Again, not only is the narrative lazy, but I feel like it was just set up as an excuse to just introduce all this other DLC and make it from a narrative perspective all work together. Once we get the final DLC, the story will make perfect sense, just like in Destiny. And when that happens, you best believe I'ma ether it. Like I said, for now, this is just speculation, but I will take this L and I will put it in the escrow account and hand Ubisoft that L if they in fact try to pull that off.
If by some miracle you survive green poison, then nature's decided you deserve to live. The rest of us shouldn't and won't. Godspeed. I'll see you in hell.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my critique of The Division. Thank you so much, guys, for being very patient for this video. A lot of you guys had been nagging me on Twitter for it. A lot of you guys were looking forward to hearing my thoughts on it. I did state on Twitter that the reason I did this video is I wanted to try something different. I wanted to try for certain games, maybe these bigger games or so forth, that I actually do critiques, which are full deep dive, mind the ethos videos talking about everything I can about the game that I feel is important, that I wish to discuss about the game, and just not care about how long the video is. Now, if you guys like this format and you'd like to see more of these bigger games actually have these long videos, then I'll make more. Just let me know in the comments below. If instead you like a video like this to be cut up in parts and uploaded in separate parts so it'd be more manageable, again, I can do that, but you have to let me know in the comments below. If you don't like this at all and you feel like it's way too long, again, let me know in the comments below. Just like this video, give me constructive feedback and criticism in order to make my channel better and deliver more efficient content for you. Again, I want to thank my Patreon backers, because without them, a video like this would have not been possible through their feedback and support. And if you want to support me on Patreon, you can check me out in the link below. And also, I've revived my website, Mind the Ethos, out of hiatus, which will be a side-by-side companion app with my YouTube, which will allow you to further deep dive into certain topics that I discuss and allow you to just get more content all in one location for for your enjoyment. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and leap forward, my friends.
Yeah.